being nice is a bad thing. As a former nice guy, or should I say a recovering nice guy, who spent over 2 decades being incredibly nice, I speak with some authority when I say that being nice is a completely bullshit way of being and is actually something that does more harm than good. Let's start by defining what being nice means. Nice means trying to make somebody else happy, trying to make them more comfortable, or trying to make their life easier. And I know, it sounds good. Sounds like a good thing to do. Today I'm going to give you 5 reasons why it isn't. Number 1, being nice enables bad behavior. For someone to change for the better, they need to go through what's called a crisis. They need to experience enough pain to realize, shit, I've got to get my act together, I've got to change my behavior and improve my life. When you're nice to someone who's going through pain, you actually reduce that pain level. And quite often what you do is you reduce it so much that it's no longer a crisis. And what this does, it condones bad behavior. It means this person's now going to repeat what they were doing because it doesn't quite feel bad enough to change. Niceness, or making someone feel better, essentially removes the necessary motivation that people require to improve their behavior. That's why people who are surrounded by nice people all the time tend to stay the same. Whereas people who get harsh but true criticism and get discouragement from bad behavior and get tough love do tend to improve. Self-sabotage doesn't require compassion. Compassion's for people who have something kind of wrong with them and they just need to accept it. They have a problem that can't be fixed. But when someone's damaging their own life with their shitty behavior, they don't need compassion. They need assertiveness. They need someone to hold a mirror up and say, this is what you're fucking doing. Sort your shit out. Being nice usually means, in fact always means, not being confrontational. And confrontations are often what's required to save somebody's life. We've all got the devil inside us. We're all capable of awful things. And when you're around a nice person who's got no boundaries, you're more likely to be that thing. So if you're a user, or you're manipulative, or you're an abuser of some kind, it's a nice person who's more likely to provoke that in you. So when you're going around being extra nice all the time, you're essentially enabling bad behavior in others because you will not set boundaries with them, you will not confront them on their shit, and therefore they get away with it. The longer they get away with it, the more it becomes a pattern, the more entitled they feel to be this way. So you're essentially training them to be bad. What to do instead? Just tell the fucking truth. Be honest with your thoughts and your feelings about other people's behavior. Give them genuine feedback. You can still tell them, yes, I like the way you did that. You can also tell them, look, that's out of your control. You just need to accept it. But when someone's doing something bad, deliberately, that they could choose not to do, you need to be straight with them about the way you feel, about what you think of that behavior, even about your judgments. They don't have to take it on board, they don't have to change, but at least make sure they had the opportunity to see what they really look like rather than getting that compassionate pat on the back that you're always giving people. Number 2, you prevent them from processing emotions. Niceness is a strategy. Essentially, it's a strategy to reduce the amount of uncomfortable emotions that you and other people feel. Emotions like grief, sadness, anger, frustration, confusion, fear, anxiety, depression, on and on and on. Right? Pretty much any emotion that isn't happiness or calmness or even excitement, anything in the unpleasurable category gets squashed by niceness. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is all of those emotions are necessary experiences. They are there to serve a purpose. Grief helps you overcome a loss, as does sadness. Anger helps you be more assertive, courageous, and passionate. Confusion is what's needed to help you motivate you to find an answer. If you're depriving people of these emotions, you're depriving them of what comes with those emotions. If you're always cheering someone up when they're sad, then they won't process their loss properly. If you're always calming someone down when they're angry, then they won't develop assertiveness and courage, and they won't solve the problems they need to solve. So when you use your niceness to make someone feel happy when they were feeling something else, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for yourself because you're uncomfortable with them feeling that way. They might need to feel that way, and you're stealing that away from them. Deprive someone of their natural emotions for long enough, and you make them weak. They need those emotions to process the vast variations of life experiences. If you deprive them of those emotions, you deprive them of their ability to process life. You are making them fragile, all because you can't handle them being angry. What to do instead? Support, but don't fix. If someone's in pain, you can be there for them. You can throw an arm around their shoulders, you can be a good listener, but don't try to change their mood. Don't try to fix the problem. Let them be angry for as long as they need to be angry for. Let them be sad until they're over their grief. Let them be confused until they figure out the solution. Don't try to speed up that process. Leave them to do it themselves, instead of being manipulative. Number 3, you create codependence. Niceness is often a secret strategy to make people need you. It comes from a deep fear that us nice people have about being insignificant. We need our validation. We need other people to say, yes, without you I would be lost. And so we use niceness to disable people. They become dependent on us. They need our help. They need our support. They need our approval. We actually set that system up in this kind of subconscious, very manipulative way. People will start to believe that because you're always there to support them and always there to help them and always nice to them, that they've always needed it, that they can't survive without it. So you actually disable their self-confidence by always being nice instead of being honest. You also create something that's very poisonous, and that is the path of least resistance. People will come to rely on you. They'll see that it's easier to go to you than it is to sort shit out for themselves. I used to do this all the time at the office. I would solve someone's problem quickly rather than making them solve it themselves, and then they'd develop a pattern of just coming to me without even trying to solve the problem. So you create that dependency on people which disables them. They now lose their ability to problem solve because they think they need you to do it. What to do instead? Push people to solve their problems themselves. If they're going to come to you for guidance, make sure that guidance is on how they can figure it out rather than you figuring it out for them. Make it that they're always pushed to be independent so that they never need you. That's truly helping someone. That's teaching a man to fish rather than fishing for him. If you struggle with helping people without trying to fix them, check out the blog post I've got linked below on how to help a friend. Number 4, you manipulate people into a relationship based on false impressions. When somebody starts to like you or even love you because of how nice you are essentially tricking them into a relationship with that nice representation of yourself, which isn't all of who you are. In fact, it's only a small slice of the pie. All those other emotions you feel and all those disagreements and confrontations you want to have are all hidden. So that's not what they're falling in love with. They're falling in love with the bullshit act that you're putting on. And that is very fucking manipulative. There's a manipulation technique known as gaslighting, which essentially means you make someone doubt their own reality. When you're being nice all the time, what you're doing is making people doubt the possibility that you have so-called bad qualities. They'll start to see you as perfect, which will also ruin their self-worth when they're around you. They'll start to see themselves as flawed compared to you because you always seem so nice and happy all the time. Overall, this will lead people to question their understanding of reality and of life. If they're not sure about what you really are, they start to become unsure about what they really are, about what anything really is. By you playing the false act and convincing them of it, you're taking away their ability to accurately assess reality. Worst of all, and I see this happen all the time, this can lead to a very long-term friendship or even a marriage. You can keep someone strung along for years on this act. And what are you doing? You're stealing their life away, because if they don't really like you for who you really are, and you're married to them for 5-10 years, essentially you're committing a really serious type of fraud. I'm surprised there aren't laws against this. I guess it'd be too hard to monitor. But if you don't show people who you really are and let them fall in love with you, you are stealing their life. How is that nice? Instead, let people hate you. Let them see who you really are, what you really feel, what's beyond the nice performance, and let them decide for themselves whether or not they like you. Stop fucking manipulating people. It's unfair and nobody wins in the long term. All you get is some short-term validation and then everybody loses. Number 5, you set unrealistic expectations. If you're nice all the time, you start to convince people that this kind of niceness actually exists, that humans really are this altruistic and happy all the time. This creates a very false impression of what humans are actually like, and this is why a lot of people have shame around anxiety and depression and anger problems, because they're surrounded by nice people who don't seem to have any of those problems. They don't realize they're surrounded by a bunch of performing bullshit artists. When you're nice all the time, you set the bar too high for ordinary, honest people. You make everybody else look like they're mean or selfish in comparison to you, without realizing the truth is you're the selfish one, convincing everybody that you're nice so that you can get their approval. Real humans are a mixture. We've got good and we've got bad in us. We can be nice and we can be nasty. And that's a realistic human being, and that's what we need to get accustomed to. That's what we need to look out into the world and know that's what really exists. If you're surrounded by nice people all the time, you start to lose your ability to judge people accurately, and that can lead to disasters. And think about yourself here. You're going to be exhausted keeping up this nice guy act all the time. You got yourself into a trap. You set a precedent where you're nice all the time, and now you're backed into a corner, because if you break out of that, people are going to think you're suddenly being weird. And that's the thing though, you have to break out of it. You have to go through an initial transition period, because otherwise people are going to expect you to be nice all the time, and that's going to put a huge amount of pressure on you to be something you're not. And if you're spending a lot of time being something you're not, you're going to lose track of what you really are, and there's nothing worse than that. Nice people tend to explode. It's often called a puke. It's either an internal explosion like depression and self-harm and suicide, or an outward explosion where they suddenly react very aggressively to somebody when they've usually been nice all the time. This is what happens when the bitterness and resentment of being nice all the time comes from not being reciprocated. When you're being nice all the time, people just start to take it for granted and they get complacent about it. You've got to understand all that rage and anger that you're building up, you're causing that by being fake. Nobody else is doing that to you. And it's going to destroy your career, destroy your relationships, it will destroy your psychology. Whereas if you're just more honest, you could have a healthy baseline of all these things and not have to worry about an explosion. What to do instead? Let people see those other sides of you. Let them see when you're tired, when you don't want to help, when you're bored, when you're lonely, when you're anxious, when you're depressed, when you're a real fucking human being. Let them see that while you are a nice and generous person a lot of the time, you also have the ability to be other things, so that they can get a sense of you as being a real human being, and they'll have reasonable expectations of you, and they'll be able to project that onto the rest of the world and have reasonable expectations of other human beings. In general, you've got to ask yourself, can a manipulative liar be defined as a nice person? If not, then you have to stop being a manipulative liar, which means you can't be nice all the time, because nobody's nice all the time. They can be nice all the time, but if they're doing that all the time, it means at least some of the time it's being faked. You're hiding anger, you're hiding sadness, you're hiding tiredness, you're hiding dislike, you're hiding disagreement. That's faking it. That's manipulation. The solution to this, which is my solution to everything, just be fucking honest. It'll be hard at first, but once you get used to it, it's so much easier than being a nice person. And it's better for everybody. Thanks for watching. If you struggle with nice guy syndrome, please join the Brojo community, subscribe to this channel, and we'll help you break out of it to become a confident yet still generous person. And if you want intensive one-to-one support on this is my specialty. I rescue nice guys every single day, and you could be one of them. Just get in touch, dan@brojo.co.nz, and we'll talk through some strategies. Cheers.